Every year, flagship robotic vacuums get more and more advanced, and with new features like dirty water distillation and threshold leaping, this year is no exception. Today, I've got the latest and greatest robotic vacuums from Roborock, Narwal, Ecovacs, Dreame, and 3i, and we're going to be putting them up against the best robotic mop from 2024, the Eufy S1 Pro, to see which ones of these are worth the extra money, and as always, there are no sponsored reviews on this channel. First, we'll test their vacuuming performance on carpet and hard flooring. Then we'll see how well they mop in a variety of different situations. Then we'll see how well they deal with pet hair and long human hair. After that, we'll see which vacuums require the least maintenance. We'll test their object recognition, mapping, and ability to clean where previous generations of robotic vacuums just couldn't. And last, we'll evaluate their specific apps, smart home integrations, and privacy features. To test vacuuming performance, I prepared a mixture of 10 grams each of rice, flaxseed husks, salt, and flour to simulate different sized dirt and dust particles, and I ran each vacuum on their maximum suction power using a vacuum-only 2-pass mode. I weighed the dustbins before and after each cleaning task, and then again after the auto empty dustbin process had completed, and I thoroughly vacuumed the corded upright in between tests. Starting out with the least expensive flagship, the just released Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni has an MSRP of $12.99. The X8 Pro Omni did a meticulous vacuuming job with tight overlapping passes, and by default the station is set to high frequency auto empty, which returns to the dock after every 30 minutes of cleaning to empty its bin. And during the first 30 minutes, the X8 Pro Omni picked up 26.8 grams off the carpet, and it finished up its run picking up an additional 3.4 grams for a total of 30.2 grams or 75.5% of the flour, rice, salt, and flax mixture cleaned in 45 minutes. And after the auto empty process, there was 1.8 grams of debris left in the bin. After that, with an MSRP of $14.99 and sale prices around $10.99, the Narwal Frio Z Ultra is Narwal's first robotic vacuum with an auto empty dustbin. But compared to the 18,000 pascals of suction on the Ecovacs, the Narwal has just 12,000 pascals, and in its 35-minute vacuuming run, the Frio Z Ultra picked up just 14.7 grams or 36.75% of the mixture. However, their new auto empty system worked extremely well, and after the auto empty process, the Frio Z Ultra had 0 grams left in its dustbin. Next, also for an MSRP of $14.99 and an occasional sale price as low as $9.99, is the best robotic mop of 2024, the Eufy S1 Pro, that I've been using 7 nights a week for the last year for its unmatched hard floor performance. However, high pile carpet is a bit of a struggle for the S1 Pro with just 8,000 pascals of suction, and in its 24-minute cleaning session, the Eufy picked up just 21.7 grams or 54.25% of the debris, which is very similar to the 55% that it was able to pick up in last year's test. And after the auto empty process, the S1 Pro had 2.5 grams of debris left in its bin, which was mostly flour trapped in the corners and in the fine particle filter. For an MSRP of $15.99, we've got the brand new Roborock Saros 10R, where the R distinction refers to the Q-Revo style mopping pads, which are a bit more effective than their Viberized mopping system from the previous S series. And for vacuuming high pile carpet, the Saros 10R is able to completely detach and leave those mopping pads back at the base. Interestingly, after mapping my house, the Roborock app suggested that I enabled the raise body to clean carpet option in the app, which said it would improve cleaning performance on high pile carpet. And in my first testing run, it left the most perfect carpet lines that I've ever seen, but it only cleaned 9 grams of the flour, salt, flax, and rice, which is the worst score that I've ever recorded out of the 42 robotic vacuums that I've tested. So I turned off the raise body feature and I reran the tests, and this time the Saros 10R picked up 28.8 grams or 72% of the debris in its 21-minute cleaning session, which was enough to put it in second place behind the Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni. So needless to say, I would not recommend their new raised body carpet cleaning feature. And in both rounds, the Roborock had about 1.1 grams of debris left in its bin, which again was mostly flour caked in the fine filter. Next, with an MSRP of $16.99, is the Dreame X50 Ultra with a claimed 20,000 pascals of suction and Dreame's new Duo Brush system. The X50 Ultra cleaned for 35 minutes and picked up 28.7 grams or 71.75% of the flour, salt, flax, and rice mixture, which is almost exactly the same as the Roborock Saros 10R, but it did leave twice as much debris or 2.2 grams in its dustbin after the auto empty process. And last, the most expensive vacuum in this video with an MSRP of $18.99, but a common sale price around $14.99, is the 3i S10 Ultra, which has some pretty incredible features that we'll talk about later, but as for high-power carpet vacuuming performance, the S10 was slightly below average, cleaning for 51 minutes and picking up just 20.2 grams or 50.5% of the debris mixture. And after the auto-empty process, the 3i had by far the most leftover debris in its bin at 4.9 grams. And that means that overall, the Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni was in first place with the second highest carpet pickup score that I've ever recorded at 75.5%, and the Roborock Saros 10R and Dreame X50 Ultra were very close behind that at around 72%, which is a major improvement from all of last year's flagship models. Next, repeating that same vacuuming test on my LVP hard flooring, again on maximum suction 2-pass vacuum only mode, all the vacuums performed significantly better, with the 3i coming out on top, picking up 39.9 grams or 99.75% of the mixture, followed closely by the Eufy S1 Pro at 98.5%, the Roborock Saros 10R at 98.25%, the Dreame X50 Ultra and Narwal Frio Z Ultra both picked up 38.6 grams or 96.5%, and surprisingly the Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni, which was the best at carpet cleaning, came in last, picking up just 36.9 grams or 92.25% of the mixture because it had some issues with scattering the rice with its side brush. So that means that for combined vacuuming performance, the overall winner was the Roborock Saros 10R, with the Dreame X50 Ultra in second and the Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni in third, and all three were slightly better than the top performer from last year's video, the Dreame L10S Ultra. I also measured the noise level of all the vacuums at 3/4 suction power, and here they are from quietest to loudest. For mopping performance, I like to simulate a realistic test in my house, which is when wet mud gets tracked in on shoes or feet and then dries onto the floor. To do this, I spread 10 milliliters of Florida mud over a 2-foot by 2-foot square and I dry it with a hairdryer. Each vacuum then gets set to maximum water flow and 2 passes on a combined mopping and vacuuming run. And then after each run is complete, I spray the area with 2 sprays of water and I wipe it clean with a paper towel, and then I set the paper towel aside to air dry. And in between each test, I mop the floor with a traditional wet mop and hand dry with a towel. And last year, the Eufy S1 Pro was the first of its kind with a roller style mop that constantly adds clean water and squeezes the dirty water out into an onboard dirty water tank. And it was in a completely different league than the rest of the mops. But this year, that roller style mop has been adopted by both Ecovacs and 3i, but with the added ability to extend the entire mop out the side of the robot to increase the coverage area. In addition to that, Roborock has adopted their Q-Revo style mops into their flagship lineup, which means that all these vacuums either have dual spinning mopping pads or the new roller style mops. And compared to last year, they were all significantly better. And I thought that the Eufy S1 Pro and Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni did an equally great job, putting them in a tie for first place. The 3i S10 Ultra's roller style brush did slightly worse, but was still very good. The Dreame X50 Ultra was the highest performing of the spinning mop pads, and the Roborock Saros 10R and Narwal Frio Z Ultra were slightly worse than that, but were so much better than the Roborock S8 and Narwal Frio X Ultra flagships from 2024. And examining the floor with a microscope really shows how close the performance is for each of these mops, with only the smallest amount of dirt visible after the Narwal and Roborock cleaning, while the rest of them looked virtually spotless. Another new feature that's been widely adopted this year is the ability to mop close to edges and corners by extending the mopping pads and using special movements. So to test each edge and corner cleaning style, I put a small drop of hot sauce on this small outside corner by my stove, another one on the inside corner by my cabinets, one by a small edge indentation under my dishwasher, another one around the leg of a bar stool, and then a final drop on the open outside corner of my peninsula. And then I sent each vacuum out on a single pass room cleaning, and to score the mopping performance, I gave each vacuum a full point for completely cleaning a stain, half a point for a partial clean, and 0 points if they missed that stain entirely. And the only vacuum to score 5 points was the Roborock Saros 10R, which liberally used its extending mopping pad to clean deep inside the corners and also did especially well with outside corners and chair legs. The Ecovacs extending mop roller was also very effective at cleaning around chair legs and along the edges and inside corners, but struggled with outside corners where it mostly just ran its side brush through the stain and then missed the stain completely with its roller. When it comes to precise navigation, the Eufy S1 Pro is extremely good at getting right up to the edge of chair legs legs and walls without bumping them. But even though its more square shape helps, it lacks the extendable mop, which resulted in lots of half points for partial cleaning. And the 3i had the opposite problem, where it has all the right tools to clean into the corners, but it lacks the precise navigation needed to maneuver around. And frankly, I'm not really sure what happened with the Dreame X50 Ultra, which seemed like it purposefully tried to clean the stains with its side brush rather than its mop. And it seemed like it made the decision to completely skip over the inside corner stain after looking right at it, and it earned just 2.5 points. But in this test, the Narwal was at the biggest disadvantage because of its circular design and lack of any extending mop pads. And it only partially cleaned each stain, and most of the cleaning was done with the side brush rather than the mop pads, which, as you can imagine, is not a very effective way to clean a wet mess. I also measured the ability for each robot to lift its mopping pads when traveling over carpet, and I found that all of the vacuums got the edges of the carpet wet when they were transitioning between the hard floor and the carpet. And only the Dreame X50 Ultra, 3i S10 Ultra, and Eufy S1 Pro could vacuum on my high pile carpet with the retracted wet mop without getting the carpet wet. However, the whole concept of mop lifting is becoming much less of an issue because all the apps allow you to manually set room cleaning orders, so you can have them vacuum your carpets first before getting their mop wet. And the Dreame X50 Ultra and Roborock Saros 10R can go one step further than that and leave their whole mopping pad back at the base station while cleaning your carpet. So the only reason that you would need to use mop lift at all is if you have carpeted areas in between rooms that you want mopped and there's no alternate route for your robot to take. Another really big focus this year was on anti-tangle brush rollers, and last year Narwal pioneered a tapered cone-shaped brush that's only attached on one side, which means that the vast majority of the hair will travel down the roller and into the suction port instead of getting wrapped and matted. And in 2025, both Dreame and Roborock have adopted very similar systems, with Dreame opting for a dual tapered roller design with both bristle and rubber rollers called Duo Brush, and Roborock has a sort of single roller design that's cut in half in the middle called Duo Divide. Ecovacs and 3i have gone in a different but also effective direction with detangling combs inside of the roller housing, and the 3i actually rolls its brush in reverse when it's on the dock before it auto empties to dislodge any hairs that may have gotten stuck.
Start to clean the hair.
For the first hair test, I gave them what I felt was a very reasonable and realistic task of cleaning up 30 individual strands of real 12-inch human hair from my bathroom floor, and in order to make sure that each vacuum had sufficient time to detangle any hairs on their brushes, I had them do an additional single-pass clean of my family room carpet afterwards. Starting here with the surprising worst performer, the Narwal Frio Z Ultra had just a few hairs stuck in its side brushes, but the biggest issue was that the conical main brush performed exactly like it should have, funneling all the hair down to one end. But instead of going into the dustbin, it just clumped behind the roller. The Eufy S1 Pro also had quite a bit of hair outside of the dustbin, but the brush mostly worked as designed, where all the hair eventually got wrapped inside of the cavities on either side of the axle. And then those areas just need to be cleaned every 1 to 2 months depending on how much long hair you have on your floors. And the third not so great performance was from the 3i S10 Ultra, which had a bunch of hair wrapped around its brush roller that wasn't cleared by the hair removal auto empty process. Thankfully, the other 3 vacuums aced this test, and the Duo Divide system on the Roborock Saros 10R had just a singular hair trapped on the red side of the brush, while both the Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni and the Dreame X50 Ultra were completely hair-free. For the second test, I was maybe a bit less reasonable, and I spread 1 gram of synthetic 16-inch blue hair and 2 cotton balls separated into tufts to simulate pet fluff on my high pile carpet, and I ran each robot on a 1-pass vacuum-only run. After collecting the unclean pet hair tufts and any leftover synthetic hairs on the carpet, the 3i did the best job by far, picking up basically all of the synthetic blue hair and leaving only the smallest clump of pet hair. The Ecovacs also had a very similar performance, with basically all the hair getting picked up off the carpet. Then it was the Narwal Frio Z Ultra, the Dreame X50 Ultra, the Roborock Saros 10R, and the worst hair pickup performance by a significant margin was the Eufy S1 Pro, but that was really only half the story, because the next step was to check out the robots themselves to make sure that that hair actually made it into the dustbin. And these results were overall not great. But in this test, the Saros 10R came away with absolutely 0 tangles, the Dreame X50 Ultra had 0 tangles on the brush, but a small clump on the wheel axle, and the Narwal's cone-shaped brush did the exact same thing that it did in the first test, funneling all the hair down to the end of the brush, where it then clumped and failed to go into the dustbin. The traditional bristle brushes on the Ecovacs and 3i ended up with tangles in the middle of the brush that couldn't be scraped away by the detangling combs, and the Eufy S1 Pro's rubber brush also had a tangle in the exact middle, but I'm pretty confident that it would have eventually migrated into the space on the side axle to be cleaned out during routine maintenance. And that brings me to what I think is one of the most important considerations when buying a flagship robotic vacuum, which is how often are you going to need to touch it, because the ultimate goal is just to set the schedule and let it do its thing. And first and foremost, that means never getting stuck. So to test their object avoidance, I set up my living room with an untied pair of shoes, some rubber dog poop, and a long extension cord, and then I sent each vacuum on a one-pass, vacuum-only run. And to score their object avoidance, I gave them 2 points for completely avoiding an object, and 1 point for touching with no catastrophic outcomes, like getting stuck or running over dog poop. And the best performance by far was from the Dreame X50 Ultra, which not only properly avoided every object, but correctly labeled them in the app and kept appropriate distances per detected item. The Eufy S1 Pro also did an excellent job, but gave the slightest little nudge to the untied shoes, which I would have liked to see it give a little bit more room in case the laces were undetectable. The Roborock Saros 10R properly avoided the poop, but completely ignored the cord, which in all fairness didn't cause it to get stuck, but it did suck up the laces of the shoe and it got stuck off camera. Based on other reviews, I was expecting the Narwal to be an absolute champion with its dual RGB front-facing cameras, but it absolutely didn't care at all about the dog poop, even though I had selected that there were pets in this house, and it ran directly over both pieces multiple times, which would have been an absolute poopocalypse. The 3i also completely disregarded the dog poop and sucked it up into the main unit, getting stuck off camera with a jammed brush due to the rubber poop. And despite the front-facing RGB cameras, the Ecovacs X8 Omni was like a bull in a china shop, just indiscriminately plowing through everything. As for their mopping systems, both the robots and the docks do need some occasional maintenance. Starting out with robot maintenance, the new roller style mops are awesome because they are constantly cleaning their roller and extracting dirty water into an onboard tank. But along with that system comes extra maintenance like cleaning the dirty water debris filter. And after using the Eufy S1 Pro for a year and the 3i S10 Ultra for the last 2 months, I can tell you that the onboard filters are going to need attention roughly once a month to keep the water flowing properly, and a good cleaning is going to take about 5 to 10 minutes. In contrast, the spinning pad style mops just need to be occasionally switched out and thrown into the laundry, which takes about 30 seconds and is much less messy. The mop cleaning docks also need attention from time to time, and the Roborock Saros 10R dock includes automated squeegees to move any debris into the drain, which used to be a feature on the Dreame bases as well, but on the X50 Ultra they've moved to a different system that just has a coarse drain catch in the back. So I guess they decided that the squeegees weren't necessary. I also tested their water capacity, and the Ecovacs had the largest clean water tank at 4.6 liters, and the Eufy S1 Pro was the smallest at 3 liters. But I also measured the amount of water used during that 100 square foot mopping test on maximum water usage, and the Narwal used by far the most at 1.1 liters. The Dreame X50 Ultra and Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni used around 400 milliliters. The Saros 10R used 326 milliliters, the S1 Pro used 188 milliliters, and based on measuring its clean water tank alone, it seemed like the 3i S10 Ultra only used 80 milliliters of water in its entire mopping run. So if you do a little bit of extrapolation on that data, you can estimate that for a 1,000 square foot space on maximum water flow, the Narwal Frio Z Ultra would need a water change every single mopping run. The Dreame, Roborock, and Ecovacs could do about 3 runs between water changes. The Eufy S1 Pro could do 5 cleanings, and the 3i S10 Ultra could do 15. But in actuality, the 3i S10 Ultra, under the right conditions, can do an infinite number of cleanings, which brings me to the next section, which are the new and innovative features of a few of these robots. Starting out with the 3i S10 Ultra, which has a unique and pretty incredible solution to the mop water problem. As we calculated, most of these robotic mops are going to need their water changed around once a week. And while options do exist to plumb your robotic vacuum directly into your drain and water supply, the difficulty of those installations is definitely a barrier for most consumers. The 3i, on the other hand, captures mop water from the humidity in the air, and it distills all of its dirty water down to be used again, evacuating all the leftover dirt and debris into the dust bag. So there's never any dirty water to dump out, and there's a constant supply of clean water. For me, in my house in Florida, the 3i has no problem keeping a full clean water tank, since the indoor humidity is generally between 45 and 50%, but capturing water from the already dry air might not be a great idea if you live somewhere like Arizona, Nevada, or Tatooine. And it also comes at the cost of significantly more energy consumption, and I measured the energy used to mop my kitchen and bathroom, recharge the robot, and then fully dry the mop, and I found that the Roborock, Ecovacs, Dreame, and Narwal all had very similar consumption, around 0.2 kilowatt hours, while the Eufy used roughly twice that at 0.539 kilowatt hours, and the 3i used a staggering 1.343 kilowatt hours for its water capture and distillation system, which, to put it into context, means running the 3i every night would use over 40 kilowatt hours a month and would cost me roughly $8 a month. This year's flagship vacuums are also designed to go where previous vacuums just couldn't, starting with under your furniture. And while the Narwal Frio Z Ultra and 3i S10 Ultra still have large top-mounted bumps and need around 120 millimeters of clearance, the Ecovacs X8 Omni uses a front-facing LiDAR system to reduce its overall height, but it's still pretty tall at 97.3 millimeters. The Eufy S1 Pro also uses front-facing LiDAR and is 6 millimeters shorter than that at 91 millimeters. The Dreame X50 Ultra has a unique top-mounted LiDAR that can raise and lower itself to fit under tight spaces, and with the LiDAR down it has a total height of just 89.4 millimeters. But the Saros 10R is by far the shortest at just 78.3 millimeters, and thanks to its new StarSight navigation system, it also has a really good sense of which obstacles it can safely fit under. While the Ecovacs and Eufy occasionally got stuck after wedging themselves into tight areas. And the Dreame X50 Ultra is a bit reluctant to go into tight spaces, even when they're labeled clearly on the map, and the robot is set to extreme coverage. So if cleaning under tight spaces is important for you, then the Saros 10R is the clear option. The next innovation allowing these robots to go where previous vacuums couldn't is in their threshold climbing ability. And while previous vacuums were limited to threshold sizes around 20 millimeters, the Saros 10R claims to be able to clear thresholds at 40 millimeters, and the Dreame X50 Ultra can use its Pro Leap wheels to cross barriers up to 60 millimeters. So to test this, I built a few different thresholds with a ramp side and a flat side, identified them properly on each robot's map, and then I tested whether the robot could successfully cross in both directions. Starting with a 23 millimeter threshold, which is still taller than standard, every robot was able to cross in both directions without too much difficulty, mostly just using a full speed ramming technique. Moving up to a 35 millimeter threshold, the 3i, Eufy, Narwal, and Ecovacs didn't really even try to cross. The Roborock was able to cross the ramp side but got stuck on the flat side, and the Dreame X50 Ultra easily crossed in both directions. Last, going all the way up to a 47.5 millimeter threshold, which would be quite the toe destroyer, the Roborock sort of attempted to pass but didn't give it any serious effort, while the Dreame X50 Ultra easily passed over the ramp side of the threshold and amazingly even made it over the 47.5 millimeter flat side. So if you've got some strange half steps in your floor plan, the Dreame X50 Ultra may be the first robotic vacuum on the market to be able to handle those areas. And I also thought that it was pretty cool that you can specifically program a ramp into the X50 Ultra's map to help it move between levels if you have a single step. And that's a good segue into the final section, which are the apps, smart home integrations, and privacy features, and all the apps are very good. But I think that the Eufy, 3i, and Narwal apps are designed to be a little bit more user-friendly and avoid overwhelming people, while the Ecovacs, Dreame, and Roborock apps are designed for users who want absolute full control and are filled with dozens of very specific options for things like complex cleaning sequencing, floor direction, side brush behavior, and clearance limits. And I'm not ready to say that one approach is better for everybody, but I personally prefer having more control like I do with the Ecovacs, Dreame, and Roborock apps. I also really like to be able to control my robotic vacuum with my voice assistant to tell them to clean up a specific room without getting out my phone. And while all the vacuums do support Amazon Echo integration, only the Roborock, Dreame, and Narwal support specific room cleaning. That is, as long as you know the right thing to say. I also tested their Google Home integrations, and the only one that I wasn't able to get working at all was the Narwal, while the 3i and Eufy support just on-off commands, and the Roborock, Dreame, and Ecovacs Google Home integration support room-specific cleaning. The Roborock, Dreame, and Ecovacs vacuums also have built-in voice assistants named Rocky, Dreamy, and Yico, and in general, I'm not a huge fan of having another always-on microphone in my house, but I will say that the Ecovacs Yico GPT voice assistant is actually pretty cool, and it lets you say things like clean under my kitchen table, instead of needing to memorize exact commands like you do with the Dreamy and Rocky voice assistants. If you are a Home Assistant user, the news is surprisingly dire, and the Roborock Saros 10R works via the built-in Home Assistant integration, but despite Ecovacs also having a built-in integration, the X8 Omni isn't supported, and both Dreame and Eufy have custom HACS integrations, but the Dreame integration doesn't detect the X50 Ultra as a supported model, and the Eufy S1 Pro adds itself to Home Assistant, but with no controllable entities. I'm also disappointed to report that we don't have any vacuums that work in offline mode, and blocking the vacuums from the internet causes them all to appear offline in their respective apps, and that is especially disappointing from a privacy point of view since all of these vacuums have front-facing cameras, and all of them except for the Eufy have the option to connect to those cameras via the app and drive the robot around the house. However, I am happy to report that all the apps except for the Ecovacs require a physical button press to initially set up the remote viewing feature, so if someone manages to get the login and password for your vacuum account, at least they won't be able to turn on the camera remotely if you haven't already previously set it up. So conclusion time, converting all the results into numeric scores, the Roborock Saros 10R and Dreame X50 Ultra were neck and neck, with the Dreame having the advantage of better object recognition and avoidance, and better threshold crossing ability, while the Roborock was better at edge mopping and had better clearance for cleaning under furniture. But if you're just looking for the best cleaner, the Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni had the best mopping, the best carpet vacuuming, and the best hair pickup and tangle avoidance, but it did have the worst object avoidance score, and it had the worst hard floor vacuuming score, which to be fair was still over 90%. Lots of people always want to know which vacuum I'm going to end up using, and despite its shortcomings in power usage, object avoidance, and carpet vacuuming, I'm going to continue to use the 3i S10 Ultra because the mopping and hard floor performance is very good, and the water reclamation feature is just so convenient as long as you have enough humidity in your house and you can run the water system while you're sleeping or away, because it is definitely louder than the rest of the bases. As always, there are no sponsored reviews on this channel, but I do have links down in the description for all the vacuums in this video, and as always, I appreciate when you use those links, since as an Amazon affiliate, I do earn a small commission on the sale at no cost to you. Thank you so much to my awesome patrons over at Patreon for your continued support of my channel, and if you're interested in supporting my channel, please check out the links down in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and as always, thanks for watching The Hookup.